Thanks for downloading Ehnother Podcast from Ehnotherpodcast.com. Today's show can be found in many ways. iTunes, the Ehnotherpodcast.com webpage, and now can be found on Stitcher.com. You can now stream the latest show anywhere with the Stitcher app, on your computer, even on your boss's computer. Ehnother Podcast is now at your fingertips every day of the week and at your convenience. Enjoy today's episode of Warlock Wednesdays. Ehnotherpodcast.com. Not a sponsor. Hello and welcome to another Warlock Hour. It is Warlock Wednesdays on Ehnother Podcast. I'm your host, Rayzor, and we've got a big show for you. Lots of entertainment news. That's coming later. Also coming later, I'm a downtrodden Leafs fan tonight. They lost the Game 7 matchup, eliminated from round 1 of the playoffs, but we'll get into that more. So as always here on Warlock Hour, we're going to get right to the comic book releases for the week. So coming up this week and Wednesday, as you're listening to it, remember I record on Mondays and you hear it on Wednesdays. So today, get your comics from DC, all number 20s. Not going to say the number every time because they're all number 20s. It is the DC girls that are prevalent this week. Batgirl, Batwoman, Birds of Prey, Catwoman, and Wonder Woman. All 5 titles, all dealing with very strong women in the DC universe. All issue number 20s. Personally, I'm only picking up Batgirl. That's the only one I read. However, Birds of Prey and Batwoman are very good reads. Catwoman I haven't read, and Wonder Woman, well, just not my kind of thing. But for those of you out there that like your strong women in the DC universe, those are 5 comics that you might want to look into this week. From Marvel this week, Age of Ultron number 8 of the 10-part miniseries, Avengers: The Enemy Within number 1, Iron Man number 10, Nova number 4, and Wolverine and the X-Men number 29. Your independent releases from Dynamite Entertainment, Kevin Smith's The Bionic Man number 20. As stated previously, this is a comic book series based on the script that Kevin Smith wrote for a Bionic Man movie some 15 years ago. And since the movie didn't get made, he decided to translate that script into a comic book, and Dynamite Entertainment is publishing it. Also from the independents this week, IDW Publishing, G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero number 190. That is your comic book releases for the week. Very short list, but for those of you who have big pull lists each week at your local comic book stores, this might be a nice little week off where it only costs you maybe $15, $20 as opposed to $30 or $40 on some of the bigger weeks. Personally, for me this week, it's going to be about a $12 week, so that's pretty good considering most of my weeks are in the 20s, low 20s, so that's pretty good for me. Alright, so let's move into the movie news. There's lots of it. We're going to start, as always, with the box office reports from the weekend past. And as expected, the number 1 movie, once again, Iron Man 3, bringing in another $72.5 million here in North America. And worldwide now, this movie has grossed close to $1 billion. It is at $949 million. It will crack the $1 billion mark after this coming weekend, though it's going to get strong competition from the new releases, which I'll get to at the end of the top 10. Iron Man has done very well local here in North America, already bringing in a grand total of $284.9 million, which is already over the budget of $200 million that was estimated, the estimated budget for the movie. You add in probably another $15 to $30 million in promotions, and you're guaranteed that this movie's making some serious bank with only 2 weeks of release. Your number 2 movie this week, the new movie from last week, Great Gatsby, $50 million this week. Very good chunk of change considering it was going up against Iron Man 3. As I predicted, Iron Man 3 holds on to that number 1 spot just 1 week longer. We'll have to see what happens this coming week. As I said, a new release I'll talk about in a few minutes. Number 3 this week, Pain and Gain, dropping down from the 2nd spot, bringing in $5 million. Number 4 this week, another new movie, Tyler Perry Presents Peoples, This brought in $4.6 million. 42 drops from 3 to 5 with 4.5 million. Oblivion drops from 4 to 6 with 4.1 million. The Croods is on a steady decline, dropping from 5th to 7th with 3.6 million. Mud drops from 7th to 8th with 2.5 million. Again, this is a film that has very limited release right now, 852 screens. Dropping from 6th to 9th is The Big Wedding with 2.4 million, and rounding out the top 10, dropping from 8th to 10th, Oz the Great and Powerful, hanging on to the number 10 spot, $1 million this week, bringing its grand total up to $230 million. So those are your top 10. Your new release for this week, only one big movie coming out this week, Star Trek Into Darkness. As I said, this may be the only one that can compete with Iron Man at this time. Will it have the numbers that Iron Man had? Absolutely not. It will not make $170 million this weekend. However, can it unseat Iron Man as the number one movie for the weekend? Well, let's see. If we put it to a logical point of view, Star Trek is going to be the new movie. It obviously is going to bring in the Star Trek fans and the fans who it accumulated with the new release of Star Trek in I want to say 2010, but it might be 2011. I don't have the date offhand. Should have had that ready, but I wasn't sure where I was going with this. Anyways, the movie that came out a few years ago, the reboot of the franchise by J.J. Abrams, has brought in new fans, so the old fans and the new fans are going to come out to see this movie. I'm predicting probably a $70 million weekend. If Iron Man drops again to about a $50 million weekend, yes, Star Trek can take the number one spot. It will definitely have competition. Great Gatsby is going to probably drop down to 3, and those are probably going to be your top 3 next week. Star Trek, Iron Man, flip-flop them however you want, and then Great Gatsby. We'll find out how accurate I am next week, but those are my predictions. So, now that we have the box office news out of the way, and we have the new release for next week, let's move into some movie news. Dungeons & Dragons fans. Well, you may be fans of the game, but you haven't been fans of the movies. The movies have not been very successful, and there was a television animated series in 1983. There was the live-action version of the movie in 2000, which kind of was not very good. Then there was 2005 and 2012. There was direct-to-DVDs, and again, not very successful. However, Warner Brothers is planning a reboot for the Dungeons & Dragons movies. They've decided that they were going to reboot the series with a screenplay from Wrath of Titans writer David Leslie Johnson. Now, that's just a rumor at this time. That's not necessarily mean that he will pen the script. However, he does have a connection to the creators, Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson's universe, so to speak. Chainmail, a game that was invented in 1971, which predated D&D, was created by Gygax and Jeff Perrin. And the screenplay said to have started from there. Now, again, this is just a rumor. David Leslie Johnson may not be the writer, but that is what Warner Brothers is reporting at this time. So we'll just have to wait and see where that goes. But to quote Mr. Ralph Garman, I predict doom on this movie, or this will be a movie that will suck. I love Dungeons & Dragons, yet I have not seen a great movie from them. The last movie I saw was the 2000 version, and it was entertaining. Don't get me wrong, it was very entertaining. Was it a Dungeons & Dragons movie? Nah, it was probably more of just a fantasy movie. It's really hard to translate this game into a movie, I think. The animated series worked okay, but I'm thinking that this would have to be a very high-budget film. Warner Brothers has the money, but they've also... They're highs and lows at Warner Brothers. They've succeeded in some areas and failed in others. Failure in some of their comic book movies, obviously. Success in some of their book adaptations, but also failures in some of their book adaptations and successes in their comic book movies. They're up and down company, but they do have money, and if they can put some money into this, it's going to be hard because there hasn't been much success in the Dungeons & Dragons area. However, we'll have to wait and see. Moving on, X-Men Days of Future Past is confirmed to be shot in 3D. I am not a huge fan of 3D. However, Bryan Singer has decided that he will be shooting 3D for this film, and therefore the 3D effects in the movie will be more realistic because they will be shot in 3D as opposed to converted to 3D. Zoe Saldana is in the news. She had an interview where she confirmed that shooting for the 2 Avatar sequels, which will be shot concurrently, which means they will basically be shot, the second part 2 and part 3 will be shot back to back, so much like Peter Jackson did with the Hobbit movies. They were all shot as one, and they were coming out different years, and the Matrix movies, Matrix 2 and Matrix 3, were both shot back to back, and then they came out separately. What other examples can I give you? Well, even the Lord of the Rings movies, they were shot back to back to back, and then, came out separately. The Avatar sequels are to be shot this way, and the filming will begin sometime in the new year. Likely January is a good start, and what Zoe has said is that it looks like Fox is deciding to possibly release Avatar 2 in maybe Christmas of 2015, with Avatar 3 possibly the following Christmas. Originally, they had Avatar slated for Christmas of 2014. However, with filming starting in January, and with the way James Cameron works, I highly doubt the movie will come out in 2014. Also, Zoe Saldana is in the news for another reason. She talks about playing Gamora in Guardians of the Galaxy, which she was cast for not too long ago. In an interview with MTV this past week, she said, "It feels unique, but it doesn't feel like it hasn't been done before," she said. "I love the levity in the script, and I like the casting of it. I've been a fan of Chris Pratt, and I think that his gifted natural comedic timing might come in handy to play someone like Star-Lord." Now, she was asked about Gamora's costume. For those of you who don't know, Gamora in the comics is wearing quite a revealing costume. It basically is a, how do I put it? She wears a cape, and then it looks like she's got like suspenders, but like a little bit wider, coming down over her chest, covering her breasts, and leading into basically a leather thong. That's basically what the example of what it's looked like. That's the way it's almost always been drawn in the comics. As we know, comic book female characters are always a little bit over-sexualized. Let's face it, most of the readers are male. There have been some dominant females in comics that have been a little bit less revealing. However, there's always going to be that factor in comics. So when asked about this, she said, "I'm in the process right now of the evolution of conceiving Gamora's look. It's exciting. We're trying to work out comfort also, because you know that I definitely want to be involved in the stunt doing of my character." So I'm going to post a picture in the below, in the descriptions below, and you can take a look at the picture of Gamora, and you can see how she looks in the comics. Not necessarily how she will look in the movie, but how she looks in the comics. And if you look at it, there is some factors that have to be taken into consideration with stunts to the movie. It's a comic book movie, but it is for a teen to adult audience. We don't need blatant nudity in a comic book movie, and in certain sequences, the way this costume is made, it could end up that way. So there will definitely be some changes. I still think it will be slightly revealing. Let's face it, Zoe Saldana is a very good-looking woman, and she could definitely play the part. Where this goes, we'll have to wait and see. She is involved in the creative process, so that's always a good sign. Moving on, Universal Pictures has decided to push back Jurassic Park 4. It was originally scheduled for June 13th, 2014 release, and now it has not got a release date. The official statement is, in coordination with filmmakers, Universal has decided to release Jurassic Park 4 at a later date, giving the studio and filmmakers adequate time to bring audiences the best possible version of the fourth installment in Universal's beloved franchise. We could not be more excited about the vision that Colin Trevorrow has created for this film, and we look forward to watching as he and the producers create another great chapter in this franchise's storied history. basically that says to me is they're not ready. They don't want to rush it. Hopefully that's what they're saying, and they want to make it better for the fans. Let's face it, the second and third Jurassic Parks were quite a drop-off from the first one. If you were to look at it as a diagram, you'd have the first one way up high, a little bit of a dip for the second one, and then a huge cliff drop-off for the third one. They need to get back up to that, at least the second level. Like they have to do something. And with this, 21 Jump Street jumps at the chance to take Jurassic Park 4's old date. With Universal Pictures officially announcing that, Columbia Pictures decided, well, you know what? Instead of coming out June 6th, 2014, we are now going to come out June 13th, 2014, which means they will no longer be up against the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie from Michael Bay, the produced movie. He's not directing it, he's producing it. So June 6th is now all Ninja Turtles, and they're going to come out a week later with 21 Jump Street 2. So that's the plan there. Columbia Pictures decided to move. They pushed it back just a week. It's just a simple jump. They said, hey, Jurassic Park 4 is not there no more. Let's take that spot. A lot of films do that when things get changed around. All right. Moving on, as I said before, there's been rumors that Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver will be involved in Marvel's The Avengers Part 2, and it was confirmed that they will be in it. There's still things being worked out. For example, they want them to be actors looking in their 20s. That's the word. One of the rumors is Irish actress, and I know I'm going to pronounce this wrong, and I know my girlfriend's going to be listening, so I'm sorry if I do, but I think it's Saoirse Ronan. Now, I'm not sure if I got that right. I'm learning the language, but I'm pretty sure it's Saoirse Ronan. I could be wrong. I'm sorry. I hope I got it right. She is one of the rumored actresses for the role of Scarlet Witch. She just turned 19, so when filming starts, she will be 2021, so it definitely could go. And one of the things that would be perfect for her for the role is she has those stunning blue eyes. And that is something that is perfect for the Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch is definitely not necessarily known for blue eyes, but she's definitely, there's a focus on her eyes. So there's definitely that. Her name is Wanda. That's her, like Scarlet Witch's real name is Wanda. Her brother's name is Pietro, but they're saying they want the characters to be British. Now, technically Pietro sounds more Russian, but it is only described as being Euro and edgy. So it's hard to say who would play brother to Saoirse Ronan if she is cast as Scarlet Witch, which I think would be fantastic. I think that's awesome. For those of you wondering, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver are actually mutants. However, there will be no mentioning of their mutant heritage and no mentioning of their father, who is actually Magneto, as he's a mutant. The thing is, both Fox and Marvel own the rights to Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. However, because of that, Marvel cannot refer to them as mutants, and Fox cannot refer to them as Avengers. They are Avengers. They're part of not the original team, but they debuted way back in 1965 in Avengers number 16. So only 16 issues in, they were part of the Avengers. So anybody who says they're not part of the Avengers needs to go back and get a history lesson, because they were part of the Avengers and have been part of the Avengers for a very long time. Recently, Scarlet Witch has been brought back to the Avengers in the Uncanny Avengers comic book, which is part of the Marvel Now initiative. So I'm definitely looking forward to this. I definitely like the idea of Saoirse Ronan as the Scarlet Witch. We'll just have to see what happens going forward. Okay, other Marvel Studio projects have been revealed. There was a talk, fans were wondering, after the great success of Iron Man 3, would Robert Downey Jr. renegotiate with Marvel Studios for future appearances in films. We are almost guaranteed to see him in Avengers 2. and they're wondering if there could be a possible third Avengers movie and a fourth Iron Man. However, personally, I think he will be in the next two Avengers movies, but not a fourth Iron Man. He will not be in a standalone movie again, in my opinion. Beyond that, Marvel is developing their Phase 3. They're looking for scripts that they have in development are a Miss Marvel script, a reboot of the character Blade, whose recently their rights has been returned to Marvel, and also works at Marvel that are still in production, pre-production, script production, whatever you want to call it, or even thoughts, Doctor Strange, Iron Fist, Black Panther, and The Runaways. Kevin Feige spoke with Collider and said there are currently no plans to make spin-off films for the characters War Machine or the Falcon, who will be in Captain America Winter Soldier. They don't want to spin off every side character. Let's face it, they do have a lot of movies now that they are releasing. You can't oversaturate the market, so to speak. Yes, right now, comic book movies are huge successes, especially for Marvel. Marvel and Disney are like cornering the market. DC and Warner Brothers are falling by the wayside. With the success of Dark Knight aside, the Batman and Superman franchises have been the only successful franchises for DC. I've mentioned this many times before. DC needs to get their ass in gear because, simply put, there is no need for DC to have such uncontinuity in their movies when they have always been owned by the same company. Whereas Marvel's created continuity with lesser known characters. Let's face it, before Iron Man came out, the first Iron Man, not many people were reading Iron Man comics. There's you diehard fans, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to beg on the Iron Man fans, but let's face it, the top Marvel characters have always been Spider-Man, Wolverine, and the X-Men. Those are the top ones. Your Fantastic Fours or even have been pushed aside, even though they're the first family of comics. But at the same time, they're not as popular as the ones I just listed, Spider-Man, Wolverine, and the X-Men. So with Marvel trying to push some of their lesser knowns because they don't own the rights to the big ones, and working in consortium, so to speak, with the other studios to get a little bit of continuity, and I know that there's been talks. Between Marvel and Sony. The talks between Marvel and Fox are very heated because, well, Marvel really wanted to get the rights to Silver Surfer and Galactus back. That's what was one of the concessions they wanted to make if Fox wanted to keep the rights to the Daredevil franchise, which they didn't because they weren't giving up Silver Surfer and Galactus. So they're a little bit more heated, but I know they're in talks with Sony to possibly get Spider-Man into an Avengers film, whether it's the second or the third one. That is something that Marvel Studios really would like to see. And if you can work on an agreement with the other company, it's very plausible that this could happen. If you'll excuse me for a second, I'm just going to take a drink of water. Alrighty then. So moving on, Disney Animation, speaking of Disney and Marvel, has announced that their plans for their first animated movie from the Marvel Universe, and it's going to be Big Hero 6. For those of you who don't know, and I didn't, Big Hero 6 is an action comedy adventure about brilliant robotics prodigy Hiro Hamada, who finds himself in the grips of a criminal plot that threatens to destroy the fast-paced, high-tech city of San Francisco. With the help of his closest companion, a robot named Baymax, Hiro joins forces with a reluctant team of first-time crime fighters on a mission to save their city. So this is going to be the first animated release through Disney, and it is called Big Hero 6. It is slated to enter theaters in 3D November 7th, 2014. So there's still some time away, which means if they're coming out November 7th, 2014, knowing Disney as I do, they've already been working on this movie for about 1.5 to 2 years, and this is just the official announcement about confirming what their first one would be. Sticking with movie news, I still have a few more to go here before we move on to some other entertainment news. It looks like possibly the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie may have found their Shredder. Now, here's the thing. The Shredder is kind of supposed to be a little bit Asian. However, the actor that possibly could be playing him is not. His name is William Fichtner. Fichtner. So for those of you who don't know, he is he's a quite a talented actor, very well known for playing baddies, so to say, kind of something along the lines of a bad guy. He's been in I can't even think of something right now. He was in Prison Break. He played a kind of a bad guy. He was kind of a good guy, kind of a bad guy. He kind of floated on the edge there. He was in Armageddon. He will be in Elysium. Apparently he's also supposed to be in The Lone Ranger, but I'm not sure who he plays there. I think he actually might be the bad guy in that as well. Now, for those of you who are wondering about the Japanese backstory and whatsoever, Fichtner recently played a character named Master Chang in Quentin Dupier's... I can't pronounce his last name. Quentin... Anyways, it was a movie called Wrong. So, I mean, it's possible, and I mean, they could change the backstory just a little bit, but it is possible that he will be playing the role of the Shredder, because it was announced that he will be playing an iconic character in the Turtles mythology. And with most of the characters already cast, it is a great possibility that he is playing the Shredder. So, moving on a little bit more here still. Star Wars has announced that Episode 7 will be returning to the UK for production. The quote from Kathleen Kennedy, president of Lucasfilm, says, "We've devoted serious time and attention to revisiting the origins of Star Wars as inspiration for our process on the new movie, and I'm thrilled that returning to the UK for production and utilizing the incredible talent there can be a part of that. Speaking from my own long-standing connection into the UK with films like Raiders of the Lost Ark, Empire of the Sun, and recently Horse. It's very exciting to be heading back." Earlier this year, Chancellor George Osborne in London, in an agreement to produce Star Wars in the UK, said, "I am delighted that Star Wars is coming back to Britain. Today's announcement that the next Star Wars film will be shot and produced in the UK is great news for fans and for our creative industries. As we all know, Star Wars Episode 7 will be directed by Star Trek director J.J. Abrams from a screenplay written by Michael Arndt and is scheduled for a 2015 release." So, returning to the UK for some filming at the famed Elstree, Shepperton, Leavesden, Ealing, and Pinewood Studios is Star Wars Episode 7. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes starts production, and they are releasing an official synopsis. They started production this week, and as we all know, the only returning member is Andy Serkis playing the motion capture Caesar. This is the synopsis that was officially released. A growing nation of genetically evolved apes led by Caesar is threatened by a band of human survivors of the devastating virus unleashed a decade earlier. They reach a fragile peace, but the peace proves short-lived, as both sides are brought to the brink of war that will determine who emerge as Earth's dominant species. Originally, this was going to take place 15 years after the events of Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and now turns out that it will be 10. Excuse me, I need another drink. Got a very dry throat today, so... So, unfortunately, James Franco is not returning to the role of Dr. William Rodman, which is not too bad. I mean, it is 10 years later, so it's okay. The stars that are going to be a part of it, as I said, Andy Serkis will be reprising his role of Caesar in motion capture. Also returning are also part of the film Jason Clarke, Gary Oldman, Kerry Russell, Cody Smith-McPhee, and Judy Greer. They will all be part of the cast of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, which is scheduled for release May 21st, 2014. And finally, on the movie front, sad news today. Warner Brothers announces they are remaking Gremlins. Now, when I say today, I say this is Monday, May 13th. Remember that, so this is sad news being announced on Monday, May 13th, that Gremlins is being rebooted. Now, here's the thing. Steven Spielberg basically had a contract through his studio Amblin Entertainment, and a Gremlins film could not be, or any film through Amblin Entertainment, this includes like E.T. or whatever, cannot be remade, sequelized, or rebooted without Steven Spielberg's participation and clearance. So the fact of the matter is, this has been okayed by Steven Spielberg. So I don't know if that makes you feel any better or worse that Steven Spielberg is on board. I mean, he is getting older, but yeah, it definitely looks like there's going to be a reboot of the Gremlins, and I guarantee dollars to donuts that Gizmo will now be a CGI character instead of an adorable practical effects creation. Who knows what's going to happen, but they are in the works of getting a remake together for the Gremlins. So that's it for movie news, and while I get the entertainment news ready for television and other entertainment news, let's hear from Rob Cicchetto.
Hi, I'm Rob Cicchetto, and you're listening to Ehnother Podcast.com.
All right, so let's get to some other entertainment news. Doctor Who rumors. There's been rumors about John Hurt's role in the 50th anniversary, and it's kind of a spoiler, possibly. This is all rumor, so if you don't want to hear it, you might want to skip ahead. But it's a rumor, so I mean, it's really up to you. Here's the thing. The rumor is that John Hurt will be not an ally of the Doctor, not a villain, but in fact the real Ninth Doctor. The rumor is that Hurt will play the Ninth Doctor, which means that technically Christopher Eccleston's Doctor would have been 10th, David Tennant's would have been 11th, and Matt Smith's would have been 12th. And the way they're working this obviously is involving timey-wimey stuff, wibbly-wobbly timey-wimey stuff, and basically they're saying that the Doctor erased his memories of that self. Like, basically, they have been repressed and forced to forget their real Ninth Self. The big question would be how and why, what's involved and everything, but again, this is definitely very much a rumor. There is only one episode left of Doctor Who this season before we get the 50th anniversary in November. The season finale is set to air this coming Saturday, May 18th, all around the world. Well, at least in the UK and Ireland and North America and all that. So that's the season finale, and yeah, so that's the rumor, that he's actually the real Ninth Doctor. Now, again, not sure where this is going, not sure what is going on about it. However, for further on that, Stephen Moffat was interviewed on the red carpet of the British Academy Television Awards on, I believe, Sunday night. Yes, Sunday night, the 12th. And here's what he had to say. It is one of the extraordinary success stories of television, Doctor Who. It's one of the very few times that television's created a character for itself that's gone on to that mythic status. Usually it borrows Sherlock Holmes or other things from literature. To have a character created by television for television that has become of mythic status and become a sort of cultural landmark in the country is remarkable. Not down to me, of course, down to the genius of Verity Lambert and her team. He was asked about the 3D for the special anniversary. Well, it's the only show with a box that's actually bigger on the inside, isn't it? So, if you've actually got the technology to make your television bigger on the inside, it sort of goes with Doctor Who. Surely. And of course, he was asked about all the rumors, and he says, well, do you know, all I've ever revealed about what we're doing in Doctor Who is anything that we filmed outside. So I'm rather reticent about what's actually in there. I notice people are making up stuff about who or what or is or what is not in that special. You're just going to have to wait until November to find out the truth. Most of them are quite fanciful, and some are entertainingly angry. People who make up their own theories about what is or is not in the special, and then make a YouTube film about how angry they are about their own theory. Oh, I love you all, Doctor Who fans, but now and then, don't believe everything you hear or don't hear. So what can we read into this? Absolutely nothing. Stephen Moffat going in circles. However, he does offer a glimmer of hope that some of the rumors we've been hearing are untrue, or some of the rumors we haven't heard are untrue. If that makes sense. I don't know. But I guess we just have to wait till November and find out. ABC officially picks up Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's right, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is coming to ABC this fall, and I will be putting a brief 30-second clip, sneak preview trailer, if you will, in the description below, and you can see a little bit of how S.H.I.E.L.D. looks for the premiere this fall on ABC. That was big news. We were still not officially sure of what was going to be happening with it. We knew that the pilot was shot in the can, ready to be taken out, and of course ABC picked it up and are going to be showing it. Speaking about shows coming to television, anyone remember the show 24 starring Kiefer Sutherland as the enigmatic Jack Bauer? Well, it will be back. Fox has ordered 24, Live Another Day. It's going to be done a little differently this time. As opposed to being 24 episodes, each of an hour long, kind of being set in real time, they're going to make it a summer 2014 show. So next summer, next probably June-ish usually is when the summer shows start. Fox will be airing 12 one-hour show episodes, and each hour will encompass 2 hours of the 24. So they're going to shorten it down in somewhat to 12 episodes, and obviously they're going to stick to the split screens and everything that we're used to from the original series. But yes, 24 is coming back to television at least for one more season. Now, some of you may say, well, wait a minute, isn't Kiefer Sutherland doing another show? Well, he was, only it was cancelled. Touched got 2 seasons and is now cancelled, so he is free. He is able to do it. This is probably going to take place, the movie that was rumored about and never got off the ground, because Fox has actually had Jack Bauer, or Kiefer Sutherland really, signed for another season and a movie. Now, they did get Touch out of him, so that's 2 seasons to make up for part of that contract, because they have his negotiating rights, and they also now have this new way of doing the show 24. If it's successful, it could be a recurring, maybe 2 or 3 more seasons of Mr. Jack Bauer. Doing the 12 episode summer arc is a little bit easier than doing a 24 episode full season arc. Some entertainment news. With the release of Star Trek, the second Star Trek film by J.J. Abrams, Star Trek Into Darkness, Audi put out a commercial, Zachary Quinto versus Leonard Nimoy. Spock versus Spock. The challenge. And it's such a funny commercial, and I just had to share it with you all, so I'll be putting it in the description below. For those of you who haven't seen the reboot of Star Trek, I'm about to spoil it for you. And if you haven't seen it by now, too bad. In the Star Trek reboot, Spock, played by Leonard Nimoy, comes back in time and meets his younger self, played by Zachary Quinto. They come to refer to Leonard Nimoy's Spock as Spock Prime. So now they are going to have a little competition in a commercial that I found very amusing, and I will put it in the description below. Also, you will find that trailer, I said, of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the picture of Gamora from the comics. So be sure to check below for those. That is it for the entertainment news. Before I move on to sports, let's hear again from Rob Scichetto.
Hi, I'm Rob Scichetto, creator of Zombie Portraits. You can check out Zombie Portraits at zombieportraits.com.
All right, thank you, Rob Scichetto, and remember to check out zombieportraits.com. Okay, so we're going to start with baseball news first because there's a little bit less baseball than hockey. And hockey, like I said, the playoffs just ended as I'm recording this tonight. So lots of hockey news, and the baseball is just pretty straightforward as we're still early stages of the season, about 38 games in, 30, I'll say about 37 to 40 games in, depending on the team. So let's take a look at the American League standings, and we have the New York Yankees leading the East with a 24-14 record, the Texas Rangers leading the West with a 24-13 record, and the Detroit Tigers leading the Central with a 21-15 record. Your two wild cards at the moment are the Baltimore Orioles and the Boston Red Sox, both from the AL East. 23-15 for Baltimore, 22-16 for the Red Sox. Over in the National League, the St. Louis Cardinals of the Central have a 24-13 record. The San Francisco Giants from the West have a 23-15 record, and the Atlanta Braves from the East have a 21-16 record. The hot Atlanta Braves cooled off a bit and now still lead the East, but it's definitely not as much as it used to be. Your wild cards are the Cincinnati Reds, and then there's a two-way tie for that second wild card, the Arizona Diamondbacks, and I was going to say the Arizona Cardinals. That was just a totally different team, totally different league. The Cincinnati Reds are the number one wild card team. The number two wild card spot is a tie between the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Pittsburgh Pirates. Both of those with 21-17 records, Cincinnati with a 22-16 record. So that's the standings so far. Let's get into some statistics. And as we look, always we're just going to take a look at the three major, in my opinion, offensive categories, and then, of course, the three major, in my opinion, pitching categories. So your home run leaders, Justin Upton with 12. He had the same last week, so no change there. Three players, Chris Davis of the Orioles. Justin Upton was of the Braves. Chris Davis of the Orioles, Mark Reynolds of the Indians, and Edwin Encarnacion of the Jays, all with 11 home runs. And then John Buck of the Mets, Bryce Harper of the Nationals, and Robinson Cano of the Yankees, each with 10 home runs. RBIs, Miguel Cabrera leads with 40. Chris Davis of the Orioles with 37. Miguel Cabrera, by the way, is from the Tigers. Prince Fielder from the Tigers, 33. Mike Napoli of the Red Sox, also with 33. And Mark Reynolds of the Indians with 32 RBIs. Your stolen base leaders, Jacoby Ellsbury of the Red Sox with 12. Juan Pierre of the Marlins, also with 12. Everett Cabrera of the Padres with 11. Nate McLouth of the Oilers? No, it's not the Oilers. It's the Orioles with 11. And then Sterling Marte of the Pirates and John Segura of the Brewers, each with 10. Your pitching categories, your wins leaders, all these leaders all have 6 wins. So I only named them because there's 6 of them. And I usually only do the top 5, but they all have 6 wins, so I'm naming them all. Clay Buchholz of the Red Sox, Matt Moore of the Tampa Rays, Yu Darvish of the Rangers, Justin Masterson of the Indians, Lance Lynn of the Cardinals, the St. Louis variety, not the Arizona variety, and Jordan Zimmerman of the Nationals, all each with 6 wins, lead pitchers with wins. Your strikeout leaders, Yu Darvish of the Rangers with 80, A.J. Burnett of the Pirates with 72, Anibal Sanchez of the Tigers with 66, Matt Harvey of the Mets with 62, and Max Scherzer of the Tigers and Ryan Dempster of the Red Sox, each with 61. And your save leaders, Jason Grilli of the Pirates has 15, Mariano Rivera of the Yankees also with 15, Jim Johnson of the Orioles with 14, Sergio Romo of the Giants, and Rafael Soriano of the Nationals, each with 12. So those are your statistics. That's your baseball update for this week. A little personal note, the Blue Jays have had some success recently, taking a series against the Boston Red Sox this past week, belting out home run after home run in Game 3. They got a 2-game set against the San Francisco Giants coming up, so that's a tough matchup. Although they do have R.A. Dickey who says he's coming around. We'll have to wait and see how that goes on Tuesday night. So by the time you're listening, we'll already know how it goes. But I can't predict the future. If I could, I'd be a millionaire. So let's get right into the hockey news. Stanley Cup playoff action time. Now, before I get into any Stanley Cup stuff, we had some award announcements this week. Or finalists. Your Vezina finalists are Sergei Bobrovsky of the Columbus Blue Jackets, Henrik Lundqvist of the New York Rangers, and Antti Niemi of the San Jose Sharks. So those are your top three goalies. Which one will be the Vezina? My personal pick is actually a man who did not make the playoffs, and therefore he probably won't win. But in my opinion, he had a huge season for the Columbus Blue Jackets, and once he really set his mind to it, almost had them into the playoffs, and it came down to the last day of the season. He was lights out in the last month and a half. That's why he's my pick. That's Sergei Bobrovsky of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Now, Lundqvist and Niemi both made the playoffs with their teams, and have both advanced to the second round. Now, playoffs is not supposed to count, but sometimes the voters, it's in their mind that this guy's done this, so that's how that's going to go. Also announced this week, the finalists for the Hart Trophy, which is the MVP as voted on by the, I believe it's the Hockey Writers Association or something like that. It's not by anybody else other than the hockey writers. I'm pretty sure it's just the writers and media types. And your finalists for the Hart Memorial Trophy is Sidney Crosby of the Pittsburgh Penguins, Alexander Ovechkin of the Washington Capitals, and John Tavares of the New York Islanders. Now, my personal pick in this, Alex Ovechkin of the Washington Capitals. Here's the reasoning. The award is awarded annually to the player adjudged to be the most valuable to his team. Now, here's the thing. Yes, Crosby is very valuable to the Pittsburgh Penguins. However, when he was injured, the Pittsburgh Penguins just carried on. Like, nothing happened. So he couldn't have been that important because the team didn't suffer without him. And in my opinion, a team that doesn't have a player who suffers without their top guy, he's not necessarily an MVP. In the wording of the award. And I'm actually going to change my pick. Alexander Ovechkin played badly to start the year. The Washington Capitals were badly. When he turned it on, the Washington Capitals were good. However, he didn't play the full year like that. Now, here's a man, John Tavares, who I'm going to pick, even though he's not going to win it. Again, I'm picking probably a non-winner. I'm picking John Tavares to win the Hart Trophy simply because he was dominant for his team throughout the entire year. He got the New York Islanders into the playoffs for the first time in a few years and gave the Pittsburgh Penguins the fight of their life. I mean, he took, well, not just him, but they took the Pittsburgh Penguins to Game 7, or at least Game 6, sorry, not Game 7. They took them to Game 6, where they almost won it and forced Game 7, but Pittsburgh was just too much. But they were in every single game and fought their way every single game, which, when we get to later on in this segment, you'll see what that does for my predictions for round 2. Alright. Other awards announced this week, the Norris finalists. The Norris is awarded annually to the greatest all-around ability of a defenseman. Your nominees are Chris Letang of the Pittsburgh Penguins, P.K. Subban of the Montreal Canadiens, and Ryan Suter of the Minnesota Wild. My personal pick, P.K. Subban of the Montreal Canadiens. The guy has a wicked shot from the point. He led that team all year, and if he hadn't had a contract issue, probably would have been the best defenseman all year, no questions asked. Excuse me, I need another drink of water. So I'm predicting that Subban will win his first Norris Trophy, although he is in tough company against Letang and Suter. Okay, the Calder Trophy awarded to the best rookie all around, and your nominees for this are Brendan Gallagher of the Montreal Canadiens, Jonathan Huberdeau of the Florida Panthers, and Brandon Saad of the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, here's where it's tough. Gallagher had 15 goals and 13 assists in 44 regular season games. Huberdeau had 14 goals and 17 assists in all 48 games. And Saad had 10 goals and 17 assists. So points-wise, they're all very close. So who had the better games all around? I'm going to have to go with Gallagher. He seemed more consistent throughout the entire season. Now, every player goes through slumps. I mean, Huberdeau started the season hot, cooled off. Picked it up again, finished solid. Saad, again, same thing. He actually started slow and then worked his way. In my opinion, I think Brendan Gallagher helped the Montreal Canadiens a lot more and deserves the Calder Trophy. That is my opinion. I'm sticking to it. All right. The Ted Lindsay Award is the award presented annually to the most outstanding player in the NHL as voted by fellow members of the Hockey and National Hockey League Players Association. So this award, to me, is more important than the Hart Memorial Trophy. The reason being is you win it from your peers. Your peers vote you the best. And the nominees in this category are, once again, Sidney Crosby, once again, Alexander Ovechkin, and Martin St. Louis of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, that's very interesting. Tampa Bay Lightning forward Martin St. Louis is the Art Ross Trophy winner. He had the most points in the season. Crosby could have won that if he hadn't gotten hurt. That's probably a no-doubter. But in my opinion, St. Louis was healthy all year. He was the leader of his team, and he is my pick to win the Ted Lindsay Award. Now, I don't know how the players are going to lean, but because the players vote, I do think that this is a much more important award than the Hart Trophy. And finally announced this week, GM of the Year candidates, Marc Bergevin of the Montreal Canadiens, who took the team from 28th last year to 2nd in the East this year, although ousted in the first round by the Senators in just, I believe, 5 games. 5 games. So if the playoffs count, which they don't, they're not supposed to, then we'll see what happens. But also Bob Murray of the Anaheim Ducks and Ray Shero of the Pittsburgh Penguins. The only reason I think Ray Shero's in here is because he made that trade for Jerome McGinley. That's what I'm thinking. Jerome McGinley. He also picked up some depth with Brendan Morrow and Jussi Jokinen, and defensive depth with Douglas Murray. However, I think taking a team that was basically one of the worst teams in the league last year to being one of the top teams in the league this year, albeit in a shortened season, and you know what? People use that excuse so much that it's just ridiculous, it's stupid, and it's lowbrow, and you know what? You obviously know nothing about hockey if that's what you're using as your excuse for everything. The shortened season means nothing. Every team played a shortened season. So you can't bag on one team because they're only succeeding because it's a shortened season. You know what? Every team is playing a shortened season, so it's fair all around. Shut your dang mouth. Marc Bergevin is my pick as GM of the year. And before I move on to some statistics and predictions, little cool article. Sunday night, the Boston Bruins lost to the Toronto Maple Leafs in Game 6 of their first round series. Unfortunately, they found out that their plane was having their chartered flight was having some technical issues, some malfunction in the airplane, and they would have to stay overnight in Toronto before flying back to Boston on Monday to play Game 7. Now, this was kind of late at night, and they called around to a restaurant to get a meal for their team. And they called they have her name here, Lauren Grenier, and she was working at a restaurant and got the call around shortly before 11. It was a Canyon Creek Chop House, and they were asked if they could feed about 50 people. It's the Boston Bruins calling, and she said, okay, well, she thought it was a prank, because, they play pranks around there. And she said, well, okay, if you arrive in 10 minutes, the restaurant would accommodate them. So 10 minutes later, a big bus pulls up, and, well, they were down to their short staff. They were closing up. The bar was closed. Everything was closing up. They were getting ready to lock the doors, and the Boston Bruins filed in. It was just a lot of people coming into a restaurant that was definitely well understaffed to feeding this many people. And they said everybody was nice, and it was close to 1 a.m. when things were finally winding down, and Grenier was just, talking to one of the Bruins execs and said, it'd be great to have some games or it would be great if we could attend Game 7. And she said, and then somebody in the group said, well, how many tickets do you want? And she said, 4? They were given 4 tickets by the Boston Bruins to more than likely Leafs fans. They're not sure at this time, in Toronto to go to Game 7. So 4 members of the restaurant, which was Grenier, the general manager Alex, a server Darren, and a bartender Scott, who drove 10 hours to Boston with 4 tickets to go see Game 7. And Grenier said 3 of us will be wearing Leafs jerseys, but Darren is a Boston fan. Well, I got news for you. The Boston fan is going to be the happy one driving home, because Boston won Game 7 in overtime, sadly for me, sadly for Leafs Nation. Get into more of that in just a bit. But that, in and of itself, is huge and great. And you know what? You can say what you want about hockey. There's a lot of people, I hate teams. I can't stand the Ottawa Senators. I can't stand Sidney Crosby. I have respect for them, though. I know fans out there that they don't have respect for other teams. They like their team. They're very narrow-minded. They like their team, and that's fine. But you know what? They don't have to bash on every single other team. I don't always give praise to the Ottawa Senators, but they put up a hell of a series against Montreal. I stuck up for Eric Gryba when he hit that hit, and I stuck up for the Habs when the puck was kicked into the net. And everybody can say what they want about it being not kicked in because that was the call on the ice. He's allowed to direct it in. Well, no, he kicked it in. Let's be honest. He kicked it in. Anybody who's not an Ottawa Senators fan saying is kicked in. So, you know what? Fine. You know what? But the game was over. Nothing you can do. Everybody says, well, it didn't matter. They still won that game. That was the first goal. But that goal changed the whole layout of the game, the whole landscape of the game. That one goal changed everything. And the reason it changed everything is because at that point, Montreal had a 2-0 lead. That goal made it 2-1. That meant that the next goal tied it up. During the scramble at the end, when it was tied at 2, when it should have probably only have been 2-1 or maybe even 2-0, because maybe they don't tie it up, maybe they don't have the momentum they need after that puck goes in to be getting what they need to go on. So the thing is, that changed everything. And during the final scramble, the Habs' number 1 goalie, Carey Price, who I don't consider an elite goalie but is very good and talented, got injured, and when overtime started, they had to come out with Peter Budaj, not a horrible goalie, but a goalie that was cold, that was sitting there for almost 3 hours during the game, cold, and had to come in, and on, I think, the second or third shot Ottawa scored to win the game, that put the Ottawa Senators up 3-1 in the series, in a game that could have easily gone the other way and would have made the series 2-2. They went into Montreal, and they destroyed the Montreal Canadiens 6-1. Again, Peter Budaj being in net with Price out. They also lost Gionta in that game. It was just, it changed the landscape of that series. And I stuck up for Gryba, and I stuck up for the Habs fans. Even though as a Leafs fan, I shouldn't be doing that. But you know what? I'm not narrow-minded. I'm not one-track mind. I don't like Sidney Crosby. That doesn't mean I don't respect what he can do on the ice. He's a very talented hockey player. I just don't like him as a person. I've never met him, but from every interview I see, from all the media flooding me in Canada with Sidney Crosby this and Sidney Crosby that, he's not a saint. He's not a god. He's not somebody that I need to know about 24/7. I don't care. He's a hockey player being paid millions of dollars to play a game. Yes, he's very talented at it. But you know what? That guy is one concussion away from being an Eric Lindros. That man could be out of sports with one concussion. That's all it'd take. He's had so many concussions in his career. It doesn't matter how talented you are. Your career can be over like that. It doesn't take much to be over. In hockey, you get maybe 20 years if you're very lucky. Some players get more, some players get a lot less. Sidney Crosby could be looking at a lot less. And you know what? I will not like him because of what he always says in interviews, because of how he plays the game. It has nothing to do with his talent and everything to do with how he plays the game. He doesn't play it in a manner that I think is appropriate for his size, for his character, for his nation. Everybody says, but he got the golden goal. You know what? Any player on Team Canada in that year could have scored that goal. And you want to call me wrong? Bullshit is what I say. Anybody could have scored that goal because all the work was done by Jarome Iginla in the corner, passing that puck out in front. All Crosby did was kind of tap it in. Tap it in. That's all he did. Any player on that Team Canada team is talented enough and had the skill enough to do exactly that same play. The best player in that tournament in Vancouver in 2010 was not Sidney Crosby. It was Jonathan Toews. And that's what I'm saying about that. Okay, enough of that. We're going to get into some statistics of the playoffs. Now, since the first round is over, these are all complete first round statistics. So, your points leader from the Boston Bruins, and you know what? Here's what I don't like about statistics in the playoffs, before I get into it. Teams that go 7 games are actually going to have better stats than teams that are dominant. The San Jose Sharks eliminated the Vancouver Canucks in 4 games. 4 games they eliminated the Vancouver Canucks, who once again choke in the playoffs, by the way. Yeah. And their statistics are not going to be as high as somebody else's, simply because they didn't play enough games. They didn't play 7 games or 6 games. They played 4. Their statistics are going to be lower, so they're kind of skewed. They'll balance out, though, as you go further into the playoffs. However, currently, David Krejci is your points leader with 13. He's also your goals leader, but he's tied with 2 other players. David Krejci has 5 goals with Pascal Dupuis of the Penguins and Patrick Sharp of the Blackhawks. Your assist leader is Evgeny Malkin with 9. Your plus-minus leader is Nathan Horton of the Bruins with 11. Your goals against average leader, Corey Crawford, 1.32 goals against average. Save percentage leader, Thomas Vokoun of the Pittsburgh Penguins with a 9.57 save percentage, which is kind of skewed because he's only played 2 games. So if I look at the next 2 guys on the list who've played more games, who've played every game in their series, Craig Anderson of the Ottawa Senators and Corey Crawford of the Chicago Blackhawks, each with a 9.50 save percentage. However, Thomas Vokoun has played 2 games out of the 4 that they won in 6, so you can look at it how you want. He's probably going to be playing their goaltending going forward because Theoren Fleury, oh my god, he's a hockey player from olden days and he's not even a goalie. Marc-Andre Fleury has not been very good for Pittsburgh, and we'll get into more of that in my predictions. Your wins leaders, well, unfortunately, every goalie who's won a series has 4 wins, sort of. Corey Crawford has 4, Jimmy Howard has 4, Jonathan Quick has 4. Antti Niemi has 4. Craig Anderson has 4. Tuukka Rask has 4. And Henrik Lundqvist has 4. They all have 4 wins, so I can't say any more. So of the 8 teams that remained, 7 goalies tied with 4 wins. Your shutouts leader, though, is Henrik Lundqvist, who's had 2 so far in the first round. Alright, so, like I said, the first round is over, so here are your series winners if you haven't figured it out already. Chicago defeated the Minnesota Wild 4-1. The Detroit Red Wings defeated the Anaheim Ducks 4-3. The San Jose Sharks eliminated the Vancouver Canucks 4-0. LA Kings defeated the St. Louis Blues 4-2. That was impressive because they went down 2-0 in the series and came back and won 4 straight games. Pittsburgh Penguins defeated the New York Islanders 4-2. The Ottawa Senators defeated the Montreal Canadiens 4-1. The Rangers defeated the Capitals 4-3, quite surprising in my book. And the Boston Bruins sadly defeated the Toronto Maple Leafs 4-3 as well. Now, before I leave the first round, I just want to say this. I posted this on my Facebook, and you know what? I'm just going to pull it up and reread what I wrote because I thought it was very well put, if I do say so myself. This is what I wrote after the loss. To all the true blue Leafs fans out there, I feel your pain. To all the Leafs haters out there, if you know the game of hockey at all, you know the Leafs were the better team in the series, but lost 2 of their best played games in overtime. A time when the lucky bounces rule more than anything. And to you haters, I say, nothing. You don't deserve my time. Yes, the Leafs lost a 4-2 lead in Game 7, but they were there when people had them out in Game 5. I am a proud Leafs fan, and I'm even prouder that they lasted as long as they did. Ever forward, improvements will be made, and they never did anything wrong. They lost hard-fought games. I want to congratulate real Bruins fans, not the fans that were cheering for the Bruins because they hated the Leafs. Real Bruins fans know that this was a hard-fought series, and I wish them good luck against the Surging Rangers in round 2. That's what I have to say about that. Okay, so let's move on to round 2. So what are our matchups? Round 2 looks like this. You have the Chicago Blackhawks facing off against the Detroit Red Wings in the West, as well as the LA Kings facing off against the San Jose Sharks in the West. In the East, you have the Pittsburgh Penguins facing the Sens? Yes, the Sens, the Ottawa Senators. I did get that right. And the Boston Bruins facing off against the New York Rangers. So we had 6 original 6 teams in the first round. We're down to 4. 4 original 6 teams left, and we will be down to 2 in the third round because the original 6 teams are playing against each other. We have Detroit and Chicago, great original 6 matchup, huge rivalry, and then you have Boston and New York, not so much of a huge rivalry, but should be a gritty series nonetheless. So let's get to playoff predictions. And here we go. Round 2, the dice. Unfortunately, I don't have Joey's comments right now. May get them in near the end. We'll just have to wait and see. I'm going to leave a little bit of a spot. If we don't get them in, maybe we'll get them in quickly enough that we can change things. All right. Here's what the dice have predicted for round 2. The number 1 seeded Penguins versus the number 7 seeded Senators. The dice have the Senators winning it in 7. Interesting. The dice also have the Bruins losing to the Rangers. The number 4 Bruins versus the number 6 Rangers. They also have the Rangers winning in 7. In the West, they got the number 1 seeded Blackhawks versus the number 7 seeded Red Wings, and they have the Red Wings winning in 4? I question the dice's morals there. Kings, number 5 Kings versus the number 6 Sharks. They picked the Kings in 6. After round 1, the record for the dice was 5 wins, 3 losses. They got 5 predictions out of 8 right. They had 5 series predicted with the right winners and 3 wrong. 2 of those series that were right were correctly guessed in the right games, being the Senators winning in 7 and the Rangers winning in 7. Myself, I did not do so well. I went 4 for 4. Or 4 and 4. I had 4 correct and 4 incorrect. However, of the 4 I had correct, 3 of them, I guess, I predicted the right amount of games. I said the Penguins would win in 6. They won in 6. I said the Blackhawks would win in 5. They won in 5. I said the Kings would win in 6. They won in 6. The other one I got right was the Sharks in 6, only they eliminated the Canucks in 4. The other ones I got wrong. Can't believe I got them wrong. The Habs in 6. The Habs should have defeated the Senators. Senators, well, they won. They won in 5. It was huge upset there. I picked the Capitals to beat the Rangers in 6. Unfortunately, the Rangers were just too much. Heinrich Lundqvist stood on his head. I already told you he was the only goalie to have 2 shutouts in the first round. The Leafs I picked in 7. If they had won tonight, it would have been correct, and I would have been 5-3 with 4 series correctly predicted in the right way, but unfortunately, I was wrong. I also picked the Ducks to beat the Wings in 7. Unfortunately, it went the other way, and the Wings defeated the Ducks in 7. So I was close. Some of these I was close in, because I predicted sometimes the right amount of games, but the other team won, and it just was so close. I could have easily have been 6-2 in this round. Unfortunately, I was 4-4. So, how did Joey do? Joey beat me as well. Joey went 5-3 in round 1. He correctly predicted only 1 series in the amount of games, and that series was the Wings in 6. That was the only one. The Kings in 6. Sorry, the Wings won in 7. The only one he had correct was the Kings winning in 6, and he was correct. The 5 series he had right, he predicted the Penguins would win. He got that. He predicted the Bruins would win. He got that. He predicted the Habs would win. No. The Capitals would win. No. He picked the Blackhawks would win. He got that. Of course, he picked the Wings because he's a Wings fan, and that's fine. He was right there, and I need another drink of water. Unfortunately, he picked the Canucks, whereas I picked the Sharks. He thought the Canucks were definitely the better team, that the Sharks were kind of fading into the playoffs. However, I predicted the Canucks would choke, and they did, so he got that one wrong. However, he got 5 right, and I only got 4. So, let's see how the second round goes. We'll get Joey's predictions, as I said, as soon as I can. My predictions, I already give you the dice predictions, my predictions for round 2. Alright. Penguins versus Senators. Here's the thing. The Penguins had to resort to their backup goalie to win a series against the Islanders, a team that most experts, and I use experts very loosely because some of these experts I just want to throttle sometimes. They're not really experts, they just think they are sometimes. I'm not an expert. I know I'm not an expert. I just know I watch a lot of hockey, I see trends, I see patterns, and in this game, as much as I hate this, I am predicting the Senators will win this series simply because of their goaltending. They are more solid in goal than the Pittsburgh Penguins, and that, my friends, in the playoffs is the most important position ever. Yes, you need to score goals to win, but you know what? You also have to stop the puck from getting into your net to win those games. And if you can't do that consistently, you do not win in the playoffs. And the Penguins had to resort to a backup goalie to finish off the Islanders, a team they should have dominated. In my opinion, that makes the Senators the more deadly team. Now, I am picking the Senators in 7. Which is a long stretch to win in Pittsburgh in Game 7, but I'm still picking the Senators because of the goaltending. In fact, I could see the Senators winning this in 5 or 6, but I'm picking them in 7 because I do not deny that the Penguins have firepower. That is one thing they have. Every time the Islanders did score and take the lead, Pittsburgh almost came right back. Where they were weak was goaltending. The reason why they won that series is because they made the switch to Vokun, and he gave them trouble in the first game, but the Islanders almost won Game 6. They didn't, but they almost did. I like the Senators' goaltending more in round 2, and that's why they are my pick in that series. For the second series, I am torn here. The reason why I'm torn is because the Bruins just recently eliminated my Leafs in 7 games. It was very disheartening. The Boston Bruins are a very tough, gritty team. They had some players that weren't playing up to their potential. I believe in 2 of the games that the Leafs lost in overtime, both Game 4 and Game 7, were very easily the Leafs' best played games. They weren't because they lost. But if you watch the game and not just the highlights, if you watch the whole game and watch the way Toronto dominated in a lot of the portions of the game, they were very effective against the Boston Bruins. They lost in overtime in both those games. A game, when it goes to overtime, can go any which way. It is, all bets are off in overtime. It doesn't matter how good you played in the regulation, or it doesn't matter how good you had momentum 30 seconds ago, 5 seconds ago. It takes one bounce, one shot. That ends the game. They lost 2 games like that were much, much better games for the Leafs, and I think they should have at least won one of them, if not both, to win this series. However, because I'm saying that about the Leafs, also saying that about the Bruins. The Bruins were in tough against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Yes, they were up 3-1, and Toronto forced a Game 7 when everybody had them written off after Game 4. Even I was like, there's no way the Leafs can win 3 in a row. I was right, but I did not write the Leafs off. I said I will root for them till the last breath. And I did. When that goal went in, all my breath went out. My heart didn't stop, but it was so intense. And when that goal went in, it was such a crushing blow. Like, I even debated about not even recording my podcast tonight because it was very, like, for real fans, it is disheartening to see your team lose. It really is. You invest a lot. I'm not going to sit here and cry about it, but you do invest a lot into a team. They're your team for a reason. You're loyal for a reason. I've been a loyal fan for all the teams that I cheer for a very long time. And yes, a lot of them, especially right now, aren't very successful. They haven't won championships. I've been a Leafs fan since 1991. They haven't won a championship since 1967. I wasn't even born the last time they won a championship. I've never seen them win a championship. They're still my team. Toronto Blue Jays of Major League Baseball haven't won a World Series since 1993. They haven't been to the playoffs since 1993. They're still my team. The Buffalo Bills in the NFL haven't won a Super Bowl, went to 4 straight and lost them all. However, they're one of the very few teams, I think maybe the only team, that they can say they went to 4 straight Super Bowls, and that in itself makes them an elite team because they won the AFC 4 years in a row. Yes, they lost the big game all 4 years, but they were there all 4 years. Now, they haven't been to the playoffs since early 2000s. Again, they're still my team. Seems to me the only successful team I root for is Manchester United. They're a pretty successful team. That doesn't mean I'm going to change teams. I will always root for my teams. I'm not a bandwagon jumper. The fans that bug me the most are there's 2 types of fans that bug me the most. The ones who are narrow-minded and can't see the big picture of the entire sport, and the ones who bandwagon jump. And I'm specifically referring to not all, and please, I'm not talking all New England Patriot fans, but most New England Patriot fans. I watched football for a long time. I've been a Buffalo Bills fan for going on probably 23, 24 years. I watched those games against the New England Patriots when the Buffalo Bills were dominating. When they played in New England, that stadium was empty except for Bills fans. There was more Bills fans in their stadium than there were New England fans. As soon as New England started succeeding, all of a sudden they selling out? No, see, those are bandwagon jumpers. Real fans are there for their team even when they lose. The Buffalo Bills, still sell out most of their games, if not all, every year. Yet they haven't made the playoffs in I'm thinking 10 years. I don't have that because we're not doing football. We're not doing that. Let's stick with hockey. The Maple Leafs. They sell out every single game. Now everybody's like, oh, well, they have a lot of corporate seats. You know what? They probably do. But here's the thing. Every team is only allowed to sell an X percentage of corporate seats. The rest have to be made available to season ticket holders, and then there has to be a certain percentage that are available for single game tickets. If you want season tickets to a Leafs game, you go on a waiting list. You want tickets to a game, you better freaking order those tickets the year in advance. As soon as they announce the tickets going on sale, you better book your ticket because otherwise you ain't getting one. They sell out every game, and yet they hadn't made the playoffs in 9 years. Those are loyal fans, people. Those are the fans that I respect more than anything, unless you're a narrow-minded little gimp. Because you know what? If you're just so gung-ho about your team and you hate everybody else and you don't focus on the entire league, the entire sport, encompass the entire sport, then you're very narrow-minded and you don't have the right to tell me that my opinion is wrong when I watch so much hockey, so much football, so much baseball, that I see a lot more things. I know that the Boston Bruins are a good hockey team. I congratulate them. I congratulate their fans. That was a hard-fought series. Yeah, my team lost, and it hurt. But you know what? The Boston Bruins are a very good team. They won the Stanley Cup 2 years ago. That's how good they are. And they're doing it now with Tuukka Rask as their goalie. A goalie, I might add, that came from the Toronto Maple Leafs in a trade that some moron did. And I will say that because that guy was a moron to trade Tuukka Rask and keep the goalie that he kept, who nobody even knows who he is. I do because I follow the Maple Leafs. But obviously it was the wrong move. Justin Pogge, where the hell are you? Don't know. Don't care. All I know is that the Leafs made a stupid mistake. The GM at the time made a moronic mistake when he traded Tuukka Rask away from Toronto because that goalie could have been playing for Toronto tonight. Not that there's anything wrong with James Reimer. I think James Reimer is playing really well. But Tuukka Rask was a Toronto Maple Leaf. He just won the Bruins a series. Take that as you will. I'm predicting the Bruins defeat the Rangers in 6. Let's move to the Western Conference. For my predictions, Chicago Blackhawks versus Detroit Red Wings. Once again, unfortunately for my friend Joey, I have to pick against the Wings. The Ducks gave the Wings trouble. That is very true. That series went 7. That could have went either way. The Ducks won in Anaheim. Very good for them. As my friend said, well, that gives you hope because Toronto might have to play Game 7 in Boston. And they did. And they did very well up until the last 3 minutes of the game. But bygones be bygones. However, the Blackhawks are the most dominant team in the NHL right now. I picked the Blackhawks to win in 5 last time. I think the Detroit Red Wings will give them a little bit more trouble. However, I still think the Blackhawks come out on top. I'm picking the Blackhawks to win in 6. I wanted to say 5, but I'm going to give Detroit 2 wins. But Blackhawks in 6. The other Western Conference matchup, the LA Kings versus the San Jose Sharks. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Is this a battle of California in hockey? Yes, it is. San Jose, California, and Los Angeles, California. It's a battle of California. Only I don't think it will be much of a battle, as it will be a war. These two teams have played each other so many times. I don't know the full statistics. I know it's close. But I still got to stick with the reigning Stanley Cup champions, and I'm going to predict that the Kings will win in 6. The San Jose Sharks have Antti Niemi. The LA Kings have an entire team, and Jonathan Quick is starting to look really, really good right now. And as I said earlier, with Craig Anderson of the Senators, hot goaltending in the playoffs is what wins you a Stanley Cup. Kings in 6. So unfortunately, I could not get in touch with Joey again this time. I did get in touch with him during the first round, of course, but messed up on the recording and couldn't post it. However, I did get Joey to send me his picks. See, Joey lives in Australia currently, which means the time difference is, well, let's just say he's about a day into the future. He definitely made some picks. I'm going to go through them. He even gave me a little brief description about his reasoning for picking them. So we're going to start in the West for Joey, and Joey has in the Chicago versus Detroit series, Chicago has 4 excellent forward lines, 5 really good D, and Crawford looks good so far. Detroit will have to play flawless hockey to have a chance in this series. The loss of De Kaiser on their second D pairing will make matching up against Chicago's top 4, Taves, Kane, Sharp, and Hossa, hard. Not having Helm makes matching up in the third 3-hole impossible. Howard is the X factor. Goaltenders can steal the series. Chicago is my pick to win the Cup and will win this series in 6. So Joey takes Chicago in 6 for that matchup. That's not a very good Joey impersonation, but I don't really have a Joey impersonation, so I'll just continue going in my own way. In the other Western Conference matchup, Los Angeles or San Jose, Joey has this to say. Battle of California. Could go either way. I like that LA is battle-tested from the St. Louis series. San Jose didn't beat the Canucks as much as the Canucks beat themselves. LA is deeper, more physical, Cup winners. Goaltending edge to Quick. Doughty will be the X factor. LA in 7. So this is going to be a long, grueling series according to Joey, and that means LA and Chicago would play for the Western Conference in those picks. Moving on to the Eastern Conference, Pittsburgh versus Ottawa. Ottawa had no problems against a very young and small Montreal team in the first round. Anderson looked great. They got some scoring from young forwards. Pittsburgh had a tough time in the first round. Found stability in Vokoun. Crosby is starting to fly out there. Pittsburgh has the deepest group of forwards in the playoffs. Can the Senators D hold them off? I don't think so. X factor, Erik Karlsson. Besides Anderson, Ottawa will need Karlsson to step up in a big way and shut down the Crosby again line. Penguins in 6. So he doesn't believe that Ottawa can shut down all the forwards that the Pittsburgh Penguins have. But we'll have to agree to disagree on this one because I definitely picked the Senators. Penguins in 6 for that matchup. Moving on to the other Eastern Conference matchup, Boston versus the Rangers. He had this to say. The Rangers beat the Capitals in 7, much to the delight of Leafs fans everywhere. They were winning 5-0 when Toronto was up 4-1. Then that whole comeback thing happened. He had to go there, didn't he? Anyways, he goes on to say, Boston should have no problem shutting down the anemic New York Ranger offense. X factor, Patrice Bergeron. If his line keeps rolling, it will be impossible to shut down the Bruins forwards. Henrik Lundqvist has been excellent the past 2 games for New York, but they can't shut out their opponents forever. Boston in 6. He also wanted me to say that he wanted to point out that the last time he predicted the Detroit Red Wings to lose a series, they in fact won the series in 2007. They did, however, lose to the Ducks in the Western Final that year. So, who knows what's going to keep going? Those are the picks. So he has, to recap, Joey picks Chicago winning in 6 over Detroit, Los Angeles winning in 7 over San Jose, Pittsburgh in 6 over the Ottawa Senators, and the Boston Bruins winning in 6 over the New York Rangers. So we'll add that up. We'll see what happens after the second round, and hopefully we'll get Joey on for the third round and possibly even the fourth round, which would be the Stanley Cup Final. This wraps up another Warlock Hour for this week. Definitely a lot of information came out this week. A lot of entertainment news, a lot of sports news, especially a lot of hockey with playoffs going on. And I hope you enjoy it. Remember, every week we're here on the Ehnother Podcast Network. You can listen to us on ehnotherpodcast.com. You can download us on iTunes. You can stream us on Stitcher.com. I mean, there's so many ways to listen, to hear us. We got Another Monday, Real Tuesday, Warlock Wednesday, and I hear Teen Talk Thursdays is coming back. Maybe a bi-weekly show instead of every week. We'll just have to wait and see. But we're trying, and we're succeeding. We're doing very well. Keep listening, and we'll keep talking. Have a good one. I'm out. Thanks for listening to Another Podcast from ehnotherpodcast.com. Don't forget to go on iTunes and or download right from ehnotherpodcast.com. That's EHNOTHER NHLPodcast.com. Follow us on Twitter at Ehnother Podcast. Be sure to check back for tomorrow's show only on Ehnother Podcast, your Canadian podcast network. Ehnotherpodcast.com. Not a sponsor.